Do you love someone that's anxious? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts for how to handle somebody who's anxious and how to support them without getting super frustrated. But first, my name's Michelle Farris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So the first thing to do is don't give advice. This is a common pitfall that all of us fall into because we want to help and we think we have the other person's solution. But the problem is, when you think about it, when you're hurting, do you want advice or do you want to just be heard? Most of the time you want to be heard. So I want you to remember that, because when you're trying to fix or give advice to the other person who's anxious, they tend to have what's called shame attacks, and they start to feel even worse about themselves. Because people who struggle with anxiety struggle with a lot of negative self-talk. They tend to have a lot of gloom and doom thinking, especially about themselves, and they don't like that they're anxious. This isn't something they're actually choosing. This is something that's an honest-to-God struggle for them. So we really have to take the judgment out of it. So part of how you do that is you stop giving advice. So telling them things like, calm down, or what's the big deal anyway? I've done that myself, by the way, so I totally get it. But this is a really, really common pitfall because, again, we have good intentions. We want to help the person we love who's anxious, but giving advice isn't the best way to do it. Number 2, don't take their anxiety personally, okay? This has nothing to do with you. Most of the time, people who've had anxiety have had it for years. And when you're in a relationship with someone who has anxiety, it can be tempting to take it personal, like, why are they doing this to me? Especially if it's an ongoing problem or you live with that person and you don't get much of a break. So what I really want to do is validate that if you're feeling frustrated by this, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That just means that when we are loving someone with anxiety, that's intense emotion, and we have to learn how not to react or respond in a negative way, because that's going to just make the situation worse. It also creates our own anxiety. So if you're with an anxious person, sometimes you might find that you yourself are getting anxious, because if you don't have really good tools, and I'm going to give you these, by the way, it can be really hard to detach from somebody else's emotions. You might even think if only they would just stop, it would be okay and we would be okay. But the thing is people with issues like anxiety or depression, they can't purposely stop. It's something that they have no control over. And until they see a need to seek treatment, really you need to find ways to be able to support them in a loving way and take care of yourself. Number 3, don't take responsibility for their problem, okay? Their anxiety is really something that they need to fix. But often when we love somebody who has anxiety, we want to fix it. And in part, we want to fix it not just because we don't want to see them suffer, we just want things to be calm again. The problem is that this is something that you're not going to have any control over, especially if it's somebody else's behavior. But if you don't take responsibility for fixing their problem, then they're left to see if it's a problem for them. Because if we're always talking about it being a problem, then we become the nag. We become the person that makes them feel bad. And what we want is we want them to start seeing their anxiety as a problem. So the more you can step back a bit and not give advice and not take responsibility and try to fix it for them, then they're gonna hopefully start to recognize what this is costing them. Number 4, do find healthy ways to practice self-care around this. Because when you're with somebody who's anxious, you may find that you're getting anxious as a result, in reaction to their emotions. So you may have to leave the room at times, or you may have to go vent in a journal, because to me, that's my favorite way to vent, because you can't hurt anybody. You can write the uncensored version on paper, and really that's for you, because loving someone who's anxious can be difficult. And if you're feeling frustrated or annoyed, that doesn't make you a bad person. Because when you're in relationship with someone, part of what you need to be able to do is to detach from their intense emotions. Because the minute we glob on to somebody else's anxiety and make it our own, then we're in trouble. So part of having a healthy relationship is letting the other person have their emotions without trying to get in the way or fix them. Number 5, do ask what they need from you when they're feeling anxious. Leave it so they can tell you what they need. Because what I don't want is I don't want you, because it's going to be tempting for you to say, well, I think you should go get therapy, or I think you should go on meds. Because that may be your solution, but it may not resonate for them. But if you can ask them in a gentle way what you can do to support them, that's going to show that you care and that you're not attached to it being your way. You're really trying to find out what it is they need. If they don't know what to do or they don't have any solutions, you can ask them things like, well, have you thought of checking out any kind of therapy or a group around anxiety? Have you thought of talking to your doctor about it? Because that can be a gentle way just to ask some open-ended questions. Get them thinking about what their solution is rather than you trying to give them yours. That's a much more respectful, loving way to stay connected to someone who's anxious. Another thing you can do is offer to turn down the TV or turn off the radio and sit in silence. Because often when people are anxious, they're also overstimulated. So if the kids are being loud or there's lots of noise, if you can try to minimize the noise, that can be something that can really help. And you may even ask them, hey, have you ever tried that? Or wearing headphones so that they can get that calm, quiet that they might need in order to get back to center. Number 6, do change your self-talk. Because part of what happens when we're with someone who's anxious is we get frustrated and we might tell ourselves things like, oh, here we go again, or why can't they just chill out? And the problem is those kinds of thoughts are what I term negative self-talk. And while it's totally okay to be frustrated, you don't really want to let those thoughts take on a life of its own. So you want to catch them and say, oh, you know what? Instead of saying, here we go again, right? Because that's going to feed your frustration and probably make you react more negatively in that moment. You could say, you know what? Everything is okay. I can handle this. It's okay that they're upset. I don't have to fix it. Those are the things that I want you to focus on, is to tell yourself something that's true in the moment about what's happening, but isn't negative and isn't judgmental about them or their anxiety. And if you need to make it about yourself, like everything is okay, I can handle this, I can take care of myself around this, that's a start. Because you want to be able to identify those really negative thoughts, because if you can avoid that, then you can stay calmer in the situation and your partner or your loved one can feel more supported. Now, the last one is I want you to practice good boundaries. And what I mean by that is you may have to figure out what you need to do to take care of yourself in the situation, especially if they're not ready to get help. So if they're super anxious and you're noticing that you're starting to take on their emotion, what I want you to do is practice separating their energy from your energy. And how you do that is imagine a bubble going completely over you. And that's going to separate their feelings from getting into your heart. And instead of going into you, they're going to stop. Because part of what we need to do in relationship is let the other person have their feelings. But how we do that is if we can have a really good boundary that, okay, this is not mine, this is theirs, I'm gonna let them have their feeling. That's the most loving way of detaching from a situation. And detaching with love can be really, really helpful and a great boundary to set, because you're really just backing up and letting them figure it out. This doesn't mean that you don't care or that you're not going to be supportive. It just means that sometimes you may need to opt out, because if their anxiety is triggering you in any way, you don't want to make the situation worse. So by practicing good boundaries for yourself, maybe you need to go and call a friend, or maybe you need to go meditate for a few minutes to get yourself back to center, because being with this person has maybe triggered some of your own feelings or your own anxiety. I'm going to also link in the description of this post a video I did on my own story of dealing with anxiety and what helped me. So thanks so much for watching.